Hey there, Blazer fans, and welcome to episode 13 of The Dragon's Den, a podcast for those that bleed green and gold. Today I have a special guest, a former UAB men's basketball forward from the early 1990s, Mr. Frank Haywood. Frank played for Coach Bartow from 1990 to 1994 and was a member of some very special teams from that era that had some of the biggest wins in program history. We've got a lot to get into, so I won't keep you waiting. Be sure to stick around after the recording with Frank to hear my newest segment on the podcast, This Week in Blazer History with Steve Rutherford, and hear my latest news. Thanks for listening. All right, Blazer fans, it's time for my next guest on the Dragon's Den, a former UAB basketball forward for the UAB Blazers from 1990 to 1994, Mr. Frank Haywood. Frank, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Will. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. It's great having you on. I know we kind of have a personal connection in a way because I've got your old warm up jacket. I don't know if many Blazer fans know that, but I found it online a couple of years ago. You met me and you signed it, and it's one of my favorite memorabilia items, and I wear it proudly often. So, but it's great to have that piece of history, and I know you were a great member of UAB athletics history as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'll get my listeners reacquainted with you a little bit here, since it's been a little while since we've had you on the team. You started with the Blazers in 1990. Back in high school, you were first team All City and All Metro in high school by the Birmingham News when you played for Parker High School in Birmingham. You played for William Cap Brown. You were an honorable mention for All State honors, and you were named Parker High School's MVP. Going into college, you had 464 career points at UAB, 479 career rebounds. You rank 11th all time in UAB history in blocks with 82. You led the team in blocks in 1991-92 season and the 1992-93 with 27 and 38 respectively. You led the team in rebounds your junior year with 182. You're a member of the 1992-93 team that defeated Alabama and went to the NIT Final Four. You played 118 games. You started 46, and your best games, you 15 points against Bethune-Cookman and 15 points against Cal State Northridge in your senior year, and you're also a UAB all-time letter winner. So coming out of high school, you were, I mentioned some of your accolades. Were there any other schools looking at you, and was staying at home a motivating factor for you choosing UAB?
Yeah, I had a few teams that was actually recruiting me pretty heavily. Uh, I had offers from Baylor. Back then Baylor was a program that was actually, they was in the bottom of the Big 12 during that time, and I had offers from Marshall. Actually one of the teams in Conference USA right now. Washington State, and New Orleans, and of course UAB. Those was my top five. It had a little small interest from other teams, bigger teams, but a lot of guys don't understand when you're being recruited from the high school level. You get letters from a lot of people, but do they actually come and offer a actual scholarship? That's the key, you know what I'm saying? So, but those are the schools that I did decide from, and of course, uh, I was leaning toward going to New Orleans. And New Orleans, well, their head coach was Tim Floyd. I don't know about know Tim Floyd. Tim Floyd was a coach of the Chicago Bulls. So that's where that's where I was leaning toward. Of course, my mom, she was unsure about that, and she was rather me go. I had a former teammate, Bennett Seltzer, that played with me at Parker High School. He actually was a year older than me. He came out in '89. He was playing in Washington State. So Washington State, like I said, they recruited me and offered also. And she would rather me go almost a couple thousand miles away to go to New Orleans because she was to say that New Orleans was too dangerous for me. So she was like, I don't want you to go down there. But I ended up choosing UAB. It came down to, of course, then to Washington State and UAB. And I stayed home for personal reasons. My mom, she was going through a divorce with my stepdad during my senior year, so I was like, okay, Do I go 1,500 miles away, or do I just stay close to home? So, I think I made at the time, and now I look back, it probably was the best decision I made was signing with UAB.
Okay. So you got some playing time in your freshman year, but you really started to see notable performances in your sophomore season, including one of those career high performances in points that I mentioned against Bethune Cookman when you had 15 points, and you also had 5 block shots against Southwest Baptist. You guys also moved from the Sun Belt conference to the Great Midwest that season, going from your freshman to your sophomore year. I got a question that was similar to one I was already wanting to ask. I got a question from Cedric Buchanan on social media, a former UAB football player, and he wanted to know: do you feel like Cincinnati and the old Great Midwest Conference sharpened y'all's competitiveness? From my question, what was it like playing in the old Great Midwest?
Well, first I like to say, you gotta get thanks, and you gotta tip your hat to Coach Bartow for having the vision to move UAB's basketball program out of the Sun Belt. At the time, UAB had been in the Sun Belt since the program started, and they had a lot of success in the Sun Belt. But the Great Midwest, it gave UAB's basketball program the opportunity to play on a very large scale. And one reason why I say a very large scale, you got to think uh, night in, night out. You playing against DePaul, you playing against Memphis, you playing against Cincinnati, you playing against Marquette. I mean, those are some powerhouse, teams. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Memphis, with the Larry Finch being the coach, they going to the Final Four. Votto there. Cincinnati with Oscar Robertson and stuff like that. So DePaul with Joey Myers. That, real deep, basketball tradition. So us going into the Great Midwest, it gave us, a different platform to play. So that means that, we're playing against tougher opponents, people with some history, some true basketball history. UAB was a new kid on the block at this time. We hadn't been around but 20 years, F that, I mean, just really like we was that around with 15 years. So it was a great process for us to go out and compete with those guys. And according to Cedric's question about competitiveness, man, those teams was our measuring stick, because man, those guys was big, strong. I mean, they was. You got to think, you playing with Bobby Huggins. I mean, Huggy. We used to call him Huggy Bear. What I mean? Hey, those guys were tough. I mean, if you was afraid, you couldn't play. You was, sensitive. Bardo wasn't gonna play you, and you wasn't gonna be on the floor because those teams back then, man, they pressed. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, they was very athletic and very strong. So absolutely, those teams when we got to the Great Midwest, we had to actually step our game up, and pretty much defensively because like I said, those teams there, man, had some great, great basketball tradition. So I think, like I said, tip your hat to Bartow again for having that vision to take the program, to a whole different light.
So you played alongside with some very talented teammates in your sophomore year. That included Albert Rogers, Stanley Jackson, Corey Jackson, Willie Chapman, among others. What was it like playing with these guys?
I'm gonna start with Ever Rogers. Truth. I mean, the very truth. Ever Rogers was the best basketball player that I played with at UAB. I mean, the guy was so skilled. I mean, I'm surprised. Like I said, I think even to now when he finished, he was like top three, top four all time scoring and stuff like that. This guy could flat out score. I mean, we was a close knit team, and I tell you a story. We was playing against. It was at the Civic Center playing against Auburn. So we're gonna play against Wesley Person. You know, uh, who was on the team? Maybe been Champ Rancher. They had a real solid team at that time, and we was in the hotel because every night we stayed game night. Bottle would put us up in the hotel, and before curfew, we eat pizza or whatever. We sit around, and all of us, like I said, I'm just sophomore, but of course I'm getting playing time, and Albert would always say, he would be joking, listen, I'm telling you all of you, if you get it, just bring the ball to me. Just give me the ball. We were like, we just horse playing around. And he would call everybody out. Stanley, you're not gonna do this. So Willie Battle's gonna do this. Then he go to Willie Chap. Willie Chap, blah blah. Then he come to me, Frank, do so and so. So I took offense to it in a good way though, in a good way. So the next night, of course, we played Auburn at the Civic Center. I had like a double double. I had like 11 points, 10 rebounds, and like 4 blocks that night. And we got back to the locker room after the game. Me and Edward were going at it. Coach Bartle kind of thought we was like, serious. I'm like, nah, we just talk about something that we had last night. And Edward he said, man, you know what? He said, I motivated you. That's what I'm talking about. I made you step your game up. So I mean, that's the thing. I want to think about Elbert. Elbert Rogers, man, was one of the truly the best players all time for me playing at UAB. And Stanley, Stanley was our highlight reel. Stanley was a guy that was gonna, get out, contest, steal. If we needed a steal, we needed, we getting down, the crowd is not in it. If Stanley Jackson get a steal on the wing, hey, here comes the highlight reel. And Willie Chapman, of course, was one of our big bruisers, very strong, athletic, could jump, you know what I'm saying? I mean, block shots, and could defend, very strong kid. And Corey Jackson, Corey came in as a freshman, and I think one of the things that people don't realize is that Corey inherited Elbert Rogers. So by me saying that, him inheriting Elbert Rogers, Corey had one of the best assist to turnover ratio in the country as a freshman. And one of those reasons was because, we had this play called Elbert. And saying Bardo would call Elbert and we would set screens or whatever. If Elbert got that ball in the right sweet spot, oh, that's a bucket or a foul. And most times, like I said, this guy, hey, and that actually helped Corey, with this attendance, with that assist, the turnover ratio. So that was a good thing. So yeah, those guys, and I still talk to majority of the guys in that little core group right there. I know Elbert is in Pascagoula, Willie is in Memphis, Stanley's in Minnesota, and of course Corey is still locally right here in the UAB area here in Birmingham.
You guys finished that year, your sophomore year, with your second straight appearance in the NIT. You guys lost by 3 at Tennessee, 71-68. Do you remember any parts of that game?
Absolutely. Okay, I know. You're gonna, when you name some of the people that we played against, during my time, stuff like that. I can tell you this: Tennessee had a coach's kid by the name of Allen Houston. This guy was one of the best players we've ever seen. I mean, that guy. I mean, you got to think. If people don't know Allen Houston, he was a big time. He signed $100 million contract while he was at New York Knicks. During this game, of course, it was a close game. I mean, we battled all night, but and Coach Bartow was telling us we got to be tough on him. We got to be real physical. I mean, I'm hitting this guy, coming out picks. I'm physical. It never affected his jump shot. You get him off balance, he still dropping. I'm like that. Allen Houston was tough. I will always remember that game, remember that game because we were like, man, who is this guy? Who is this guy? But then guess what? We soon found out exactly who he was, especially when he got on the professional level, and nothing changed. He had a very real good, solid NBA career.
Gotcha. So your transition from your freshman year to your sophomore year, you saw improvement, but your sophomore year to junior year, you saw even bigger strides. You went from starting 4 games to starting 26 as a junior, and you guys had a very good start to that year with a 10-1 record with wins over Mississippi State and number 18 Tulane, but you lost 7 of the following 8 games. Can you recall that midseason slump? I mean, I know you guys had some losses to South Carolina, Holy Cross, Minnesota, UC Santa Barbara, and Marquette. What was going on in that midseason slump?
I remember that very well because I remember coming from a West Coast trip. I think we had played in a cable car classic, if I'm not mistaken. We had beat we played West Virginia where I had a good game. I think I had like 14 points. Then we ended up playing like Santa Clara or something like that. We came back. We was getting ready to actually go to the Hall of Fame Classic in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I remember I think well, I think it was a Calipari. I think we had was speaking, was playing, was coaching in Massachusetts. I think during his the press conference, he gave a lot of props to our team that we had coming off like a 10-game win streak and this and that. So we was pretty much solid, I guess. What I'm saying, coming off the year before, but particular game with South Carolina. South Carolina was a very very tough team at that point, and the game came down to the very end on the 2 minutes. It was decided on the 2 minutes, and me and Corey Jackson, like I said, I talk to Corey pretty much three, 4, 5 times a day. Sometimes me and him is very close. We lost our starting lineup position after that South Carolina game. Uh, Coach Bato, for some reason I was late in the game. We didn't make the plays. Not necessarily me and Corey as an individual, but as a team. Uh, we didn't make a couple plays, and so Coach Bato the following game said he's gonna kind of shake up the team a little bit, the starting lineup. And of course, at the time, that didn't help because, like again, we dropped Holy Cross game. We went to Minnesota, who was uh, was headed by Bashan Leonard, who was another big time scorer who got drafted second round, I think, out of Minnesota. So we was just on a skid. So then Bartow kind of brought us back into the star lineup again, and we eventually got the ball back rolling. But I don't know, and a lot of teams hit those slumps, man. I don't know. And another thing, Bartow used to always tell you a funny point about that during that time. Coach Bartow had a very, very, I guess, uh, way of just saying things that make you think. A lot of times when we get down like that, he would say like, "Oh, we're reading the papers. You guys are reading the papers how good you are." How how 20 year old kids, like, I just think you're better than you are, but he always mentioned that, and we kind of think we kind of had to get back down, get back to the foundation, which was defense. I during my time we had some great defensive teams, and I think that what paved the way for some of the successes that we did have during my career.
Okay. You guys stopped the free fall with a 50-47 upset win over Memphis at Memphis. Of course, Memphis at the time was led by Penny Hardaway. You guys snapped Hardaway's 12-game streak of scoring 20 points a game. What was it like going up against Penny, and what was the game plan kind of like that game?
Mm, Penny Hardaway. Okay. Now, I first met Anthony. Back then this was before he was Penny. He was Anthony Hardaway. Um, After my senior year in high school, I was playing the AAU national team for seniors and under. We had an AAU national in Tampa, Florida, and we down there watching games during the tournament, and we see a Memphis team playing. I'm not sure who they was playing that particular day, but I saw this kid do a Reggie Miller. And when I say about a Reggie Miller, I saw Anthony Hardaway score about 8 points in like 10 seconds, literally. I mean, they was down, they put on a press, he stole the ball, he hit a three. Boom. Next thing you know, he steals the ball up under the goal, he lays it up. And they still pressing, full court press. Next thing you know, he steals the ball and hit a three. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, because this time in 1990 when it was going on, pretty much in 93 and 94, 70% of all the guys that got drafted here from the United States, they was in that tournament. I mean, all the North Carolina players, the guys that went to UCLA, the guys that went to Kansas, all those guys, the guys that went to Indiana, all of us was at that tournament. So, who knows? I didn't know. And just 2 years later, I'm gonna be facing this guy head on, UAB versus Memphis. The team always knew how important playing Memphis was for Coach Bartow. So, the week prior to the game or a couple of days leading up to the game, Coach Bartow always would, designate who was going to be guarding Penny Hardaway, whether it was George Wilkerson, myself, or either Reginald Allen. And, of course, Coach Bartow was very, very superstitious. And what I meant by being superstitious, if you play a team this year and you beat them, whatever you did that year, you're gonna do it next year. And also, if you lose to a team, the next year everything changes. You're gonna go to another a different restaurant. You're gonna do all of that. So I remember we went to the night before that game. We ate at some famous barbecue place in Memphis, and we was going over. We just knowing like, hey, this needs to be the day. Tomorrow needs to be the day that we actually beat Memphis. And like I said, Coach Bottle had a great game plan. The game plan for most teams, well, he wanted to limit possessions because we was great defensively. I mean, we had one of the best defensive teams. During my time with everybody, we played defense from the point guard all the way to the center. We could stop people. And by limiting possession, that gave us an opportunity at the end, to have a chance at winning that game. And of course, I mean, it was a tight game at halftime, and I still remember like that was supposed to be, and this is jokingly, but that was supposed to be one of my best games because Penny had, I think he finished with 15 or 16. Stanley Jackson had 15. I had 14 points that game. I was the second lead scorer on our team that game. So that was a big deal. And I remember, like I said, we and Penny, that was our focus. Because we knew he could. This guy could score in a hurry. So we always knew, like, guess what? Other players, and what we didn't know in the early games we were playing with him. You know, he's gonna get what you're gonna get him. He may get a little bit more. But they had other players who that normally didn't score a lot of points, who normally didn't hurt other teams or hurt us. They were allowed to do things that they should not have been allowed to do because we were focusing so much on Penny. So we start kind of got a balance of that, knowing how to play them. So at that point there, that was a great win in UAB history. Very, very great.
Would you say it was really satisfying to finally get over the hump and beat them?
That's the biggest smile I ever seen on Coach Bartow's face. I mean, he was elated. Yes, yes. I mean, the only time I seen him smile like that, I think it might have been in Hawaii when he got like his fifth. I think it was 500 or 600. One of those milestones. But that Memphis game, and you think about it, uh, both of them, the late Larry Finch and him, they was like a great teacher and pupil relationship. What I'm saying? They was real good close friends. And of course Larry Finch was coaching Memphis at the time. I think Larry was kind of upset he had lost to his teacher, but Bardo was more than happy to beat his pupil.
So you guys, you beat Memphis, but I think about 2 games later, you guys lost a heartbreaker to number 9 Cincinnati. The game came down to a key play, which you were involved with. You blocked a shot, but the blocked shot went back to Nick Van Exel for Cincinnati, who got it and just heaved it from deep, and he made the three to win the game. What do you remember from that moment?
Well, actually, here's the thing, Will. It wasn't a block shot. Here's the thing, what it was. I remember Gary Sanders. I heard the recording when he did that on the radio. But here's the deal: what was going on? They had a play. I was guarding Corey Blunt. People don't know Corey Blunt. He was like a 6'10" center that Cincinnati had that got drafted first round to Chicago Bulls. I'm guarding him in the post, and like I say, Nick Van Exel swung the ball to the wing, and they was trying to get Corey to Blunt because he was posting me up. You gotta think, I'm 6'4", 6'5", Corey Blunt 6'10". So I'm anticipating the pass coming in. So I'm watching. I'm like, please throw it because I had already kind of got myself on the side of him. So when they throw it in, I'm gonna steal his ball. So when they threw it in, I side jumped on Corey Blunt, and he saw me, so he hip checked me. That was kind of threw me off, and I tipped the ball with my left hand, and the ball went up to the top of the key. Because Nick Van Exel, I think he already knew. He thought I had stole the ball because he was about to start retreating, right?
Hmm.
Man, he stepped close, he stepped up and got that ball and just threw it up. Heartbreak. By the time the team got in the locker room, I was crying like a baby. I was crying. I was so upset that game because we were so close. And that particular year, We split with them, but we were supposed to sweep them that year. I mean, because Cincinnati, like I said, you got Cincinnati on the ropes like that in their house. I mean, we were supposed to beat them, but I think that particular game actually showed us and told us that you know what, we're a better team defensively, mentally, you know, than we all thought or didn't think because guess what? Because that was some great teams. Bobby Huggs, I mean, that like again, like I said earlier, Cincinnati and Memphis, those teams were our measuring stick during that time.
Okay. Well, you guys did bounce back, I guess, and in a way, you ended up going on to the NIT for your third straight year, and you faced none other than Alabama in the first round. So, take my listeners through that week of preparing for the game. Of course, the game itself. What was it all like?
Ooh, UAT versus UAB, because that's how the headline was. And now we said the 700-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And we knew those guys during from the summer league. We talked to them, of course. Some of those guys that from the city, Birmingham. Someone was in Tuscaloosa. So we knew each other from playing the state tournaments and all that stuff. But you know, that was the most tense week of my 4 years at UAB. I mean, tension was high, 'cause I know it was a lot of pressure. You know, you got big brother playing against little brother. You hear the rumors about, from the fans, whether it be on our side or their side or somebody just on the outside looking in. What does Alabama have what can they win by playing UAB? They only gonna take a loss if they lose or whatever. And you got to think, a lot of time up until that particular game, Alabama had a great program. A few years prior to that, I mean, they had some good runs. They had Robert Horry, they had Latrell Sprewell. They had some horses. You know what I'm saying? So uh, it was very, very tense that week. You know what I mean? Like I said, Bardo was on edge. Coach was like, we knew how important it was. You know what I'm saying? The whole coach, everybody, it was just tough. And then of course, like I say, because I think this thing was building up because we started hearing rumors about us playing Alabama in the NIT, like maybe 2 weeks out prior to the conference tournaments. So they started talking about, if this if and scenario, if this happened, if this doesn't happen. So the buzz was trying to build up. And then of course, you know, the NIT start committee, makes their decisions, soon after the NCAA does theirs, you know what I'm saying? So that's like a day, that's like 2 days after the selection committee. So we was at practice just waiting, and all of a sudden, guess what? It is now has come to fruition. UAB versus Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Oh my goodness, man! I tell you, nervous. We was nervous. The coaches were nervous because, like I say, it's something that in the whole city, in the whole state, that something hadn't been done, haven't been done since. I also remember, being from the city of Birmingham. I used to follow the Iron. Cause I grew up right across from Legion Field, so I know a lot about Alabama football. And we would always just think about, like, why don't we just have a four team tournament here in the city of Birmingham? This is us talking back in the '90s about that, prior to that game. But of course, come to be, I don't think that Alabama wanted to play that game. You know what I'm saying? But I think it'd be good for basketball. But it was a lot of tension and, like I said, nerves. But that game, man, like I said, when that game tipped off, I remember we rode the bus down there. Like I said, I don't think nobody talked from Birmingham to Tuscaloosa. Nothing. Nobody was saying anything. And we was all just to kind of get focused on that game. And of course, once, we got in the locker room, like, hey, this is it. This is it. This is our time to just prove that, hey, guys, we have a program and this program has to be dealt with. So, we got out there, and I could tip off, uh, of course, Alabama got two first round draft picks on their team with James Robinson and Jason Caffrey, who ended up going to Chicago Bulls the following year. You know, and of course, with us, UAB, we got down, I think, close to 9 or 10 points in the first half. Coach Bardo called a timeout. He was telling you, "You got to settle down. We got to settle down, what I'm saying? I mean, just sit down and execute, take your time, what I'm saying? If it's not there, and you got to play defense, you know what I'm saying? So, and like I said, we was a great defensive team, and I think that probably was one of our best quality, especially in that game down late in the stretch, you know what I'm saying? Defense actually won that game outside of my teammate, Robert hitting that Hail Mary, I mean, that was great. We had to joke about that. That's his claim to fame. I'm the one that hit the shot. No, the shot. You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah. I mean, that was a real, very, very tense week. And of course, it's history now. But I would definitely love to see uh, UAB and Alabama play at some time in the future. Not right now, though. I don't want them to do it right now because they got a good team right now. But I think Andy's gonna get the program back where it needs to be, competitive and stuff like that. But of course, uh, you know, the selfishness in me don't ever want them to play again because that's something that I can always argue with. Like I said, I still keep in contact with James Robinson. He lives in Las Vegas. I can still keep in contact with him. I still something and Sean Pick. That's Sean Pick. I see him every now and then. Talk to him on social media. But Walter Pitts, Walter Pitts from down a local poach. Him and Corey were good friends too. But we talk on social media about about them beating us, and they always say. Here's the crazy part about it, Will. And here's my argument to their the excuse to losing at us. They saying that they were supposed to beat us, right? I was like, and I always say how. I was like, okay, in the last 2 years, we beat Memphis with Anthony Hardaway. We beat Cincinnati with two first round draft picks. I'm like, how do you think? And then we played defense. We were great defensively. So how do you just expect you supposed to beat us? That's our argument. Like, well, y'all had a good game. Y'all had a good game. I'm like, come on now. Well, we was better than you gave us credit for. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, we thrived on defense. So I mean, but that game, I don't know. It'll go down with history. If they don't ever play again, I think it'll go down in history as one of the all-time greatest games in UAB history, and also with Alabama history because I mean, I don't think they have ever be able to forget it, no matter what.
That's true. That's a great. I love the stories, man. That's awesome. But the run didn't end there. Didn't end the following week either. You had a win over Clemson at home, the first ACC team to ever play at Bartow, and you had a win over Missouri State as well at home, and then you traveled up to New York City since you guys made the NIT Final Four. You lost to Georgetown, but you beat Providence in the third place game. What what can you say about the NIT run that year?
For those who wasn't there, it should have ended on the Clemson game. and the reason why, and the reason why I say that, Clemson had a big guy. They had what's that guard name? Witten. They had a Whitney NBA player. He got drafted, went to the NBA. They had a big guy. His name was I think Saron Wright. Guy about 6'11". I mean, big guy about 270. Big guy. He missed a point blank tip in right at the buzzer. I think I saw a photo or something where these guys all over the rim. I mean, but they missed. That's the only way I run would have ended that night. But some kind of way, the grace of God, Bartow Arena, like, hey, guess what? If you come in the Bartow Arena, I don't care who you were, there's a possibility you're gonna leave with an L. And that was just one of those nights, I guess, the Angels was with us that night. And then we played against, I think, Southwest Methodist of Missouri, or one of those teams. And then, of course, we went on to to Madison Square Garden. And you got in Madison Square Garden, um, of course, that was a bucket list on everybody's playlist. We know because we're in the NBA with Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, all those times. I mean, you got to if you didn't know about Madison Square Garden, I mean, you was like on another planet. So just having the opportunity to play in there not once but twice, you know what I'm saying? I mean, was is great. But the Georgetown game, that's one of me and my teammates. We still talk about it today. That's one of our biggest nightmares when you're talking about just a letdown. You know, for those, like I said, for those who wasn't there and don't know the story, we had them down by double digits at halftime. I mean, we cruising. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we there. I mean, cause we rolling right now. You know what I'm saying? We got 4 games on our belts that we won. You know what I mean? We really rolling. So we up by halftime. Get in the second half. I'm thinking like 17-minute mark, if I'm not mistaken. We hit a slump. We didn't score a bucket for like 12 minutes. And during this time, of course, they got, an NBA player, I think name was Othello Harrington was there. I mean, powerhouse in the post, you know what I'm saying, left-handed guy. You got to think, we're not scoring any buckets on our end, but they're chipping at our lead, 1 point here, 2 point there. And after about 12 minutes, okay, now we down by 2. Then we may get down by 3, so we're going back and forth at the end. But I just think we got our momentum just was taken and it just spent the other way to them. And unfortunately, we couldn't close it out at the end. So that was a definite heartbreaker because we had um, that game in the bag. And I still remember talking prior to that game because Minnesota was in that Final Four too, and we had played Minnesota earlier that year, and we was thinking about getting revenge on Rashawn Leonard. We got to get him back because he had gave us like 29 up in Minnesota. They beat us, so we remember like, hey, you know what, we need to get some get back on Minnesota. So we looking forward to playing Minnesota, in the next game in the championship game. But unfortunately, like I said, we came up short that night, which was, like I said, very disappointing. And then the next night we played against Providence, which was another Big East team. You know what I'm saying? That of course was highly rated program. They also had a couple guys. I think that one guy, Dickie Simpkins, I think was on that team or something that year. He ended up going to the league and drafted. You know what I'm saying? So we played a lot of talent, but that closed out my junior year. Then I know Bardo. One of the things that and I remember this that propelled uh, our attitude into the next season. I remember Barto after the game. He told us he was like, only 2 teams gonna end their seasons with an L. This was prior to the CBI. They got a lot of the subsequent tournaments now outside of the NCAA and the NIT. But at that time, it was only the NIT and the NCAA tournament. And he was like, you guys gonna be one of 2 teams, that ends this season with a win. And we took that into, of course, my senior year. You know what I'm saying? I think that was a good tactic that he used to kind of get us prepared for, our last run.
Well, it definitely did propel you guys in a good way. I mean, your senior year, you guys did take a big step forward. You made the NCAA tournament. And this was in part due to a strong regular season with wins over Mississippi State, Auburn, and you also had 3 top 25 wins. You guys even climbed up as high as number 17 in the AP top 25. What were some of your favorite memories from that senior year?
Um, well, I think one of the things about that team that I would say that we had some good chemistry. We knew each other's strengths. You know what I'm saying? I recall like during my senior year, like of course, Corey was our point guard. Well, we get in the huddle, especially late in games when we know a team was gonna press or do whatever. We would kind of like uh, suggest personnel and kind of formation, to beat the press, you know what I'm saying? during this time because we knew each other's strength. We knew that okay, if and Corey knew, Robert Shannon knew, you know what I'm saying, Reginald Joe, everybody knew okay, if if we breaking the press, if I get it here, we get it there. So I think that chemistry, because like I said, we had played together. Some of us had been together for 3 years. You know, Robert Shannon came in as a junior for as a JUCO transfer, but you know, and Corey had been there 3 years. I mean, me and Reg had been there. George had been there, was a fifth year senior. So a lot of us, and of course at the time, you know, unlike today, you know, Coach Botto, it was if you wasn't in the top seven, you learned. I mean, that's how it was. You know, if you weren't in the top seven, you know, and sometimes, you know, it was just six, you know what I'm saying? Because especially, you know, in certain games, you know, we trying to win every game, you know, not to take away that the guys wasn't able to play. It was just, you know, we had so much experience that at all times you needed that I think that core group that was consisted of, you know, four seniors along with Corey, junior, you know what I'm saying? We pretty much played most of the time. So, but I think that chemistry was one of the things that I think that gave us a success that we did early in our senior year. And but one of the I guess disappointing things about that is, you know, we still talk about it. So, you know, me and the guys that keep in contact that we underachieved. You know, we underachieved. Yeah, we reached 17, top seven. I mean, 17 in the country, but we was just it was always this one game away where you know that if we'd have won that game, you know, where would we be? You know, because I know we end up finishing, you know, like second in the conference. You know what I'm saying? And we should have going into the year, we had plans on winning it. You know, so we said this is our year to win it. You know, Cincinnati was a little down, Memphis was down, but Marquette was the powerhouse on that time because, like I said, they had two NBA players on their team, actually three. You know, NBA players on their team that play professional ball. Two of them, I think, got drafted. One of them made a free agent team on them as a free agent. But you know, we just underachieve, you know, and I think that's one of the things that it comes back to hunt you be like, you know, what if scenario, if you'd have like, you know, stayed 30 minutes later at practice, if you'd have, you know, shot 100 more shots, you know, maybe would have put you in a position, you know, to you know be more successful than we were.
Okay. And you talked about how you guys came up short. You did finish in the NCAA tournament, but you guys lost in the conference tournament to Memphis, and you ended up going to the NCAA tournament as the seventh seed, and you played George Washington. That was the highest seed UAB's ever had in NCAA tournament history. You guys fell 51-46. What was the hardest part about playing GW in that game?
Um, you know, they had a center that I think it was Yankee Diary. He was a actual drafted another NBA player that we played against. He was tough, big. I mean, big rebound, big strong. You know, and going back to what you said about the seventh seed. Of course, yeah, we was a seventh seed, and George Washington was actually a 10th seed. And that's one of the things that when I was just talking about on the other question that you asked, you know, we was a seven seed, but you know, we was 2, 3 games away to being a 3 or 4 seed that particular year. You know, like I said, we was 22-6 going in. We had dropped. You know, we lost to Memphis, we beat Memphis by 30 at home. We go up there to Memphis a couple weeks later. We lose to them. We lose to St. Louis. Uh, Actually, you know, I think they kind of shafted us on a call at the end where Carter made a shot that we should have won that game, but they ruled it, you know what I'm saying, no good, whatever. And of course, losing to Marquette on the second game of the conference. So that's 3 losses that we actually in a tight game. You know, we could give us those 3 wins that we should have actually should have won. We could probably, like I say, a 3 or 4 seed. Win the conference, you know, we definitely a 3 or 4 seed. You know, 3, you know what I'm saying, but possibly a 4, you know what I mean, or 4, possibly a 3. But yeah, George Washington, you know, so then again, we back in New York because first round of that region was was in Long Island that year. You know what I'm saying? We had just year before that was in Madison Square Garden for the NIT Final Four. But this year, my senior year, we was in Long Island, so back in New York. And I can tell you, you know, and another thing we talk about as a team, because we was tired. Will the team was really, really tired, and I think that played a part. And when I said tired, I'm talking about physically and mentally. I mean, like I say, we had been together for a while, but I think that's also one of the things we regret because we know that man, we were so close. We were so close, but we were tired. I just think that I would say that my senior year that we was very very tired at the end of the season. We was tired,
Okay.
and I think that played a like I say I think that played a big factor in that game. Coach, were we better than George Washington? Absolutely, absolutely. We should have beat them, But like I say, it just one and done. You don't get a second chance at that.
Hmm.
Of course, and like I said, unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on it. You know that early week in March.
Okay. Well, I will say a tremendous, a stat that I was looking at last night when I was doing some of the, and doing some of my research into this. You guys didn't lose a game that year in your senior season by more than 6 points. That's incredibly impressive. I mean, I know that, you know, the old saying "close only counts in horseshoes" and stuff, and like you said, it comes down to one and done in the NCAA tournament. But you guys had a great year. You made the NCAA tournament. You took a step forward. So, um, that was an impressive year. But talking about some of your teammates that you've had, how well do you keep up with some of your former teammates?
Oh, as I mentioned, Corey Jackson, like I said, hey, I talk to him every day. Uh, Pretty much, if I don't talk to him every day, it'll be every other day, but I talk to him, sometimes 5, 6 times. I mean, 5, 6 times a day, and Robert Shannon, who is here locally now too, I still keep in contact with him. Willie Chapman, who still talk to him. Ever Rogers every now and then talk to him, through Willie and through social media. So still talk to quite a few of them. Like I say, some of them like Clarence Thrash. He's in Atlanta now, so we talk through social media. So about 4 or 5 of the guys. So still even talk to George. Not every day. The person I talk to most is Corey. Because like I said, we're here locally, and Robert. But my other guys, we may talk at least a couple times, throughout the year, whether it be on social media, whether it be on the phone, or if something comes up, we may do a group text or something. We for the last couple of years been trying to plan something to kind of do some type of team reunion or something like that, get the guys back together. So hopefully that will happen here pretty soon.
Okay, cool. Well, one of your former teammates, we mentioned him earlier, but one of your former teammates is now the coach. When you were a freshman, Andy Kennedy was in his senior year. So, what was it like? What was he like then, and what's it like seeing him now as the coach?
Oh, Dan, I mean, he was a flat out shooter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I seen this guy. I I got some stories about me and him too, man. I remember, I think he broke a he said my freshman year he said a record at home at UAB. I think he had like 40 some points one game, and I told him that the game, so I'm gonna break that record because when I was in high school, I was I was 3-point shooting in high school. And of course, at UAB, I became a rebound defensive player. But I remember Andy telling me, he said, Frank, let it stand for a while. Don't break it. Let it stand for a while. Well, so Andy was a good guy, But I was very, very, very excited uh, when UAB announced that he was going to be the next head coach. You know what I'm saying? I tell him I think that's a good start. For to continue what Bartow envisioned for the program. And I always tell people that I think Andy Ken is a big time coach. And I try and they were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, what I mean by a big time coach, you got to think he coached under Bobby Huggins, what I'm saying, at Cincinnati, what I'm saying. He did some things at Ole Miss, had a good run there. I said, but big time coach, what I mean by that is he has the ability to get a home and home with a West Virginia, a Cincinnati, a UCLA. I mean, he has the ability because he's been in that coaching carousel, you know what I'm saying, that arena for so long, you know, he's able to pick up a phone and be like, hey, I need a game. You know what I'm saying? Call one of these major programs and tell them, ask them I need a game, and they'll give it to him. You know what I'm saying? Give him a home, maybe over 3 years span or something like that. But with that ability to do that, that's what you need, what I'm saying, for a program that's trying to get back relevant, like what we're trying to do at UAB. I think he's a perfect person for that. You know what I'm saying? You got to think that him pulling that kind of talent on a competition side into Bartow Arena, everybody, the whole city's gonna come out. The city's gonna come out for that kind of, especially on a regular basis. The city's gonna come out and see the Blazers play, and also because sometimes they're not just coming to see the home team; they want to come see the opponent also.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing. And that's why I think Andy is a perfect situation, a perfect ideal person for what UAB needs at this time.
Okay. Going into your basketball career, you know, who would you say had the greatest impact on you as a player, and who are some of your biggest influences in life in general?
Um, well, without a doubt, my greatest impact on me as a player was my high school coach. Cap Brown. I mean, hardcore. I mean, very, very, very discipline oriented. You know what I'm saying? I mean, strict. You know, and I I tell you a funny story about that. I remember, my mom. When he used to call me. You know what I'm saying? Something going on. My mom, I answer the phone, we had a phone in the kitchen. And I'll just be in the bedroom, and I may be studying or doing something. She'll call me. She like, your dad on the phone. I'd be like, huh? She like Cap Brown. I mean, but he was like a father to all of us. You know what I'm saying? We really really looked up to him because honestly, I don't know. I mean, coming from you know the west side of town, I grew up right in the middle of Elton Village and Smithfield housing projects. I live right in that area right there, right by Legion Field. So a lot of things I saw a lot. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things going on during that time. So honestly, Will, I don't know if it wasn't for him and of course basketball where I would be. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that he was an inspiration in my life at that time. To get me involved. But a lot of people don't know. My freshman year in high school, I got cut from the B team. I didn't even play ball my freshman year. Then my Ralph Williams, who was a former player that played at UAB, he was the head coach at Hayes High School, and he was assembling a team to go to the youth games in Washington D.C. that summer. And I went out and tried out, and of course I made the team, did well, went up. I mean, I led the team in scoring. And I came back, but Cap Brown put me straight on the varsity. So then I was starting half of the games my sophomore year. Then my junior year, I was a full time starter. So I'm like, say, hey, without that, who knows? In all my life, that's the biggest. I guess the biggest influence on my personal life. It had to be my uncle. I had an uncle, my Uncle Eddie, I called him. You know what I'm saying? Uh, he was my greatest influence on, you know, on life and trying to be successful in life. I remember as a kid, you know, as calling him because him and his wife worked at Bell South. When I was in third, fourth grade, somewhere in there. And I remember, asking my mom, like, can I call my uncle? And can I go over to stay with him and his kid? He had three kids and his wife, and she was like, "You got to call your uncle and see if he's gonna let you come over." So I called him. He worked right down on Fourth Avenue, the Bell South, the big tall Bell South building here in Birmingham. And he was like, "Yeah, Tony." Everybody called me Tony. That's my nickname. My family called me Tony because my middle name is Antonio. He was like, "Sure, Tony, you come over. I get off about 4. You know what I'm saying? About tell your mom drop you off." So when he tell me that, I just be like, I was like a happiest kid in the world. I remember going pack my suitcase. I had a little blue Samsonite, little hard case suitcase. Man, you think, boy, I like it's great. I'm going to stay with my uncle Eddie, and of course, like I said, him and his wife work for Bell South. They live over on the eastern side of town. It was just a different life. I went over there. I still recall my aunt. We'd have uh, she'd cook dinner on Friday nights. We'll sit around. Me, because I was the only child by my mom. We'd sit around with my cousins, my uncles, my three kids. We would play Yahtzee. We would play, Scrabble. You know what I'm saying? And I was a young kid. You know what I mean? I still recall him taking me along with his family to Disney World when I was I was like 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old. And I saw that drive, that successfulness that I saw. I said, you know what? I gotta have this drive. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. So I gotta focus on school. So, I mean, so he really taught me a lot. And we still talk to this day. What I'm saying, he was my biggest influence on wanting to be successful in whatever I did. What I'm saying, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in business, whether it's in basketball. He just instilled that drive in me just by watching him. You know what I'm saying? And my last thing I would say on that is, it's surprising, that but it's a fact. Exposure. I mean, exposure at a young age, what I'm saying, it makes all the difference in the world.
Okay. So, how's your life now? I know you got the business downtown. What do you want my listeners to know about it?
Life is good right now. Life is good. I have two daughters. One 26 and one is 20. My oldest daughter, she's a graduate of UAB, of course. And my youngest daughter, she's a junior here at UAB now. She's actually now preparing. She starts studying now because she wants to actually want to go to medical school. So she's in the process of that now. I own a business. 2009, I opened up a bar and lounge right on 20th Street, right here next to the Starbucks in the Publix in Midtown. And of course, during this pandemic, we've kind of scaled everything down. Not doing the parties, but on Tuesdays we still do a little light jazz jam session from like 7 to 10. So hopefully, once this pandemic gets under control, we'll probably be able to open back up and start business as usual.
Okay, that's awesome. And I got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll let you go. Some questions from my social media followers. One from Tim Stevens. I don't know if you remember Tim. He used to work with the basketball program back in the early '90s. He asked. He says Frank was known for his defense and toughness, playing bigger than his height. Who was the toughest guy he asked? He was asked to guard.
Oh, by far, I think, and I mentioned both of these guys. I came into UAB as a guard, but unfortunately, we had my freshman year, we had a couple players that actually weren't able to play my freshman year, so I got threw down in the post with the big guys. You know what I'm saying? So hey, I had to make a best of it. But the the two toughest people I've ever played, I tell anybody, it was actually, like I said, Penny Hardaway and Allen Houston. That those are for people who I had to guard head up. So both of those guys was extremely talented.
Okay. And he also asked, do people still bring up the Alabama game when they run into you? And do you still run into any Alabama players to this day?
The Alabama game is a non-conversation to most people, especially especially in T-Town. Now I don't, sometimes you may meet somebody that actually know about it because, like I said, it's a 700-pound gorilla in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. And the crazy part about it, it's been 25 years, no mention at Bartow Arena about that game. That's hush hush. Nobody talk about it. But yeah, I still talk. I do. But on a more serious note, yeah, James Robinson. Man, James Robinson, because like I said, he was on that team. Me and him still talk whenever I'm out of town because he lives out west. If I'm out there, I talk to him. We'll meet up, and stuff like that. But I talk to him on a regular basis. And Cedric Moore. I run into Cedric Moore, of course. We was summer teammates during high school. Then we played on some AAU teams together several years, and because he was on the Arizona team, I see him a lot here and there during the city, and then we may communicate through social media also. Other than that, Walter Pitts, like I said, through social media, I think that's the only three, or maybe Sean Pick Love. I think he's the head coach down at one of the Bryant High School down in Tuscaloosa. I may talk to him on the time because also he's another one that played summer ball on the AU teams and things like that traveling team during the summer.
Okay. I got one more question for you. That's a lighthearted question. Um, and I'll give you the option here. If you could, one of these two questions, you pick which one you want to answer. Okay. If you could bring back one aspect of life from the early 1990s when you were playing at UAB, what would it be? That's your first question. Or you can do, who is someone you wish you could have played one on one in your prime?
Hmm. Well, the first question, I can answer both questions, Will, but I'm just going to answer the first question.
Okay.
You know, I I would like to have that senior year back. I mean, I really would like to have that back because, like I said, it's a disappointment that I know that we was, I'm gonna say this about what some of my coaching staff used to tell us. You know, when you really don't realize it until it actually happens. You know, every year there's a closing ceremony for the seniors on the team. You know, my senior year at that closing moment, we really didn't understand that, hey guys, uh, this is gonna be it. You know, this is gonna be it. So we need to make sure that we leave it all. Got to leave it all here. You know what I mean? And that's some of the things why I said we underachieve and stuff like that. Because like again, like I said, our coaches used to always tell us. You know what I'm saying? Murray Bartow, who was of course Coach Bartow's son, Joe Evans, head assistant also. He was always tell us every year, uh, when it's gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you know what I'm saying, get everything out of it that you possibly can, you know what I'm saying? So and I just look back on that our senior year and of course we had some great moments. Don't get me wrong. We had some great nights where, everything was clicking, whatever. But we had those little one or two, three nights that if we'd have just did a little bit this, we would possibly go down. We could, because we still talk about this that that year, my senior year, we should have won 26, 27 games, no question. So that's about it. And you said one on one, ooh, during that time, I don't know. During that time, I'm a big Michael Jordan fan, but I ain't want to play him one on one. I'm gonna tell you that. I don't want none of that. That's but then I was a big Michael Jordan fan. So, but nah, I didn't want to. I want to play one on one.
Well, I appreciate your time, Frank. It was a lot of fun, and you got a great memory of the game, man. It's you got some great stories.
Oh man, oh yeah. I mean, like I say, it's just like a lot of that stuff is just like yesterday. Will I mean, like I said, man, we having conversations, man. It comes back just like wow, like it was last week. But yeah,
Well, I appreciate it, and
gotta cherish those moments. Gotta cherish those moments, man. Gotta cherish those memories, buddy.
yeah, that's true.
Because when they gone, they gone.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate it, Frank. Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving my listeners a lot of insight to what it was like back then. And hope you have a great rest of the night. Okay.
All right, you too, man. Thanks again.
A big thank you to Haywood for his time. It was a lot of fun listening to some of his stories. I felt like I was right there with some of those memories, getting ready for the games, and in those critical moments on the floor with Frank and some of the guys from that era. Frank has a great memory of the game, and I know that he has really cherished those moments and will continue to cherish those for a long time. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. But before you go, I want to introduce you to my newest segment called This Week in Blazer History. Since I'm releasing the episodes bi weekly, in every episode from now on, I will be sharing some of the most notable events from that week in UAB history. The stats and the game insider gathered by Steve Rutherford, a longtime Blazer fan that knows just about every stat and score in Blazers history. You can find him on social media at Memphis Blazer on Twitter, Steve Rutherford on Facebook, and also his second Facebook page, Today in Blazer History. And we'll go ahead and get into that. So, some of the most notable moments from UAB history from the week of February 1st to February 7th in UAB history. The first memory that Steve gave for us for here is from February 4th, 1984, UAB's first ever game with Memphis. Gene Bartow returned to Memphis for his first time since leaving the job in 1974. Bartow and the Blazers traveled to Memphis to play a non-conference game for CBS national television. Going into the game, UAB was 17-5 and 5-2 to lead the Sun Belt. The Tigers were ranked 9th in the country and had a record of 15-3. When the game began, the national television audience saw a total of 8 starters on both teams who called Memphis home. UAB's entire starting five, McKinley Singleton, Steve Mitchell, Jerome Mincy, Archie Johnson, and Jack Gordon, were all from Memphis. Of the 24 players that dressed for the game, 12 of them were Memphians. As the game began, Gene Bartow was sitting on win number 400, having just reached the milestone 2 days earlier in a game at Jacksonville. A crowd of 11,200 gathered at Mid-South Coliseum for the high school reunion game. A handmade banner at the end of the court welcomed Bartow, reading, quote, "Clean Gene, we still love you, go Tigers." The game that ensued was a classic. The score was tied 13 times, including a 27-27 deadlock. UAB led by 7 twice in the first half, but the Tigers kept coming back. In the second half, Memphis State went ahead 51-43 with 5:53 left. However, the Tigers went cold and would not score for another 10:46. In fact, the Tigers only managed 3 shots after that, but UAB stormed back on 3 long jumpers by Llewellyn Foster. The Tigers missed a chance to win the game in regulation when Andre Turner lost the ball out of bounds just before the horn sounded. The game was tied at the end of regulation 51-51. The game was before the pre-shot clock days, and in the 5-minute overtime that ensued, neither team was bold enough to attempt to score. There were only 4 shots taken, 1 by Memphis State and 3 by the Blazers. At the 2:30 mark, a Tiger stole the ball from Steve Mitchell and held the ball until there was less than a minute left. All-American Keith Lee took the final shot, but was fouled with 6 seconds left on the clock. He hit both free throws, and Memphis won 53-51. The second memory that we've got, February 6, 1988. UAB upsets BYU team looking to move to number 1. BYU is ranked number 3 in the country and traveled across country to play UAB. The week had been a week of upsets in the top 10. The Cougars were looking to move up because losses by teams ranked ahead of them. 2 nights earlier, number 1 Arizona had been defeated by Stanford. Number 2 UNLV had lost that day to UC Santa Barbara. Also on that day, number 4 Duke had lost to NC State. So BYU was the only team in the top 4 that had not lost. A win over UAB could give the Cougars the number 1 spot. Blazers were 12-10, and a crowd of 13,488 showed up for the game. The crowd was smaller than expected because the BJCC was hosting a boat show and the parking was hard to find. UAB controlled the game and led most of the game by as much as 19 in the second half, but BYU roared back, scoring on 9 of 10 possessions and cutting the lead to 7. UAB withstood the onslaught and pushed the lead back to 7. BYU never challenged again, and the Blazers won 102-83. UAB guard Michael Charles, who had 24 points, scored his 1,000th career point during that game. And when the next poll was released, it was Temple who moved from number 5 to number 1. This week in 1994, on February 5th of 1994, UAB Cincinnati, UAB won 83-67, a game that Frank Haywood was a part of. UAB played the Cincinnati Bearcats at Bartow Arena. 16-3 UAB was ranked number 17, and Cincinnati was 15-5 and ranked number 25. Blazers had already lost during the week to Marquette and needed a win to stay ranked. Both teams had 2 conference losses. Bartow Arena was packed with a standing room only crowd of 8,907. UAB started slow, but Robert Shannon led UAB from 10 down to a 44-40 deficit at half. The Bearcats shot 61% in the first half, but cooled down to 35% in the second. Blazers defensive specialist Clarence Thrash and Travis Harper shut down the Bearcat starter D'Antonio Wingfield. In the earlier UAB Cincinnati game, Wingfield had 18 points and 18 rebounds, But in this game, Wingfield shot 5 of 16 from the field and fouled out earlier. UAB won 83 to 67 on a strong second half. Robert Shannon had 21 points and Clarence Thresh had a career high 18 points. Blazers held on to their ranking, dropping to 19. And the last one that I've got here from Steve, it doesn't have a happy ending, but that's what happens sometimes. There's wins and losses. Everybody has them, but the best performance of this week does not belong to a Blazer. On February 5th of 2000, UAB played Cincinnati, and Kenyon Martin went off. The number one Cincinnati Bearcats came to Birmingham to take on UAB. UAB was 12-8, but 9-0 at home. The largest crowd at Bartow Arena history, 9,279, packed themselves in to see the number one team take on UAB. They got to see why Kenyon Martin was named Player of the Year that year. Martin set the stage early. 1 minute into the game, he rejected a Myron Ransom layup, blocking it against the backboard and sending the ball all the way to midcourt. Martin got so high that he flipped as he came down hard and hit his head on the floor. He laid there for several minutes before getting up and walking to the bench, rubbing his head. Unfortunately for the Blazers, he was out of the game for less than 2 minutes. He would go on to score a career-high 31 points, grabbing 16 rebounds and had 7 blocks. He also became the Bearcats' career shot blocker at Cincinnati in this game. UAB battled hard against the much larger Bearcats, but could not find the answer to Martin. Cincinnati won the game 93-80. UAB was led by Eric Holmes, who had 25 points, and Torrey Ward had 13. So that's going to wrap it up for this week in Blazer history. Thank you to Steve Rutherford for his insight. And my last thing before I wrap this episode up, and thank you guys, I want to wish my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Josh Evans. Many of you remember Josh as a UAB football great that went on to play in the NFL for 10 seasons with the Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans, and the New York Jets. Sadly, Josh passed away last night after a long, hard fight with cancer. The outpouring of love I've seen for Josh on social media just further shows the great legacy that he leaves with all of us. That's going to do it for me for this episode of the Dragon's Den. Be sure to follow me on social media at Dragon's Den EFEL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and see who my next guest will be, along with the latest UAB news. Good night, and go Blazers.